With Fallout's Amazon Prime show, we've learned more about the series universe than ever before, but part of that is heavily influenced by its past, and a Marine turned actor, turned bounty hunter. I'm Mark from Digital Dissection. I make Fallout lore videos, and today I'll be your guide to the expansive life of Cooper Howard, aka the Ghoul. Warning, full spoilers ahead for Fallout's first season on Amazon Prime. If you have not watched the series, we'll be going into a full background on its events. Cooper Howard's story begins long before the events of the Fallout TV show, as he was born sometime during the 2030s. And while his early childhood isn't necessarily fleshed out yet, we do know that he served as a United States Marine before the Great War. Howard's first-hand experiences defending the Alaska Territory from a Chinese invasion were hard-fought, as the Sino-American War was a brutal conflict in its earliest days, beginning in 2067. The introduction of Vault-Tec's T-45 power armor suits helped the U.S. forces gain position, but Howard witnessed several design flaws with the armor leading to casualties, as a weld near the chest plate was weak to gunfire. His service during the Sino-American War clearly changed him, as the Red Chinese forces nearly succeeded in taking the Alaskan Territory, but the United States won essentially a game of inches over time, reclaiming Anchorage in January 2077. But Howard was honorably discharged almost a decade before, and began pursuing a career as an actor. Howard saw many changes in his life after his military service, but had met his wife Barb before his Alaskan deployment. Barb was a rising leader in the Vault-Tec Corporation, and while we do not know her path to management fully, she'd continue to gain influence despite the worry that Cooper may not ever return from the war. In the late 2060s, however, their family life would continue, as the pair welcomed a daughter named Janie in 2071. After these events, Cooper's career as an actor began to take flight, making him a household name for the next decade, leading to starring roles in A Man and His Dog and The Man from Dead Horse. His niche portrayals in several Western films were well received by the general public, as the war veteran had widespread appeal and was the poster boy for California Crest Studios as America's gunslinger. His acting career was a family affair in a sense, as A Man and His Dog featured the Howard family's dog Roosevelt. The Merle Border Collie served valiantly in his time as an actor, forming a stronger bond between Cooper and his pet, as well as being one of his favorite movies he ever made during his career. Part of Howard's appeal had to do with representing honorable characters, and a disagreement between the actor and producers on The Man from Dead Horse caused him to question his character's motivations and how he felt towards gunning down a bested foe on screen. Despite gaining such a high level of notoriety and success, Howard valued preserving the ideals he defended for his country, ones he felt at odds with based on his portrayal in Dead Horse. Despite his concerns, he agreed to still film the scene as it was written, but his concern for his public image would be tested literally the same day. Barb Howard by this point was a high-ranking official for the Vault-Tec Corporation, a massive company responsible for the Project Safehouse network, a nationwide vault system to in theory protect citizens from nuclear war. At Barb's insistence, she recommended that Cooper be the poster boy for the campaign that Vault-Tec needed to showcase its marketing across the United States. The series of ads featured him heavily in a bid to sell vault spaces to those who could afford them, relying on Howard's charm and a signature thumbs-up pose he'd become associated with, as he now became known as the pitchman for the end of the world. This decision to appear in the ads, however, would be a turning point for him in more than one way. As Vault-Tec's aggressive ad campaigns increased, so did a growing concern for impending war, and opinions began to form concerning Howard's involvement as the face of an uncertain future. Due to this, a growing distaste for his appearance in the ads began to take hold within the film industry, as he began to lose roles in feature films, as well as fellow actors refusing to work with him. His popularity amongst his peers took a major hit, and some of them refused to leave their trailers when learning they'd be working with him. Cooper Howard had at this point been faced with several competing ideologies in his life, as he struggled to maintain his identity in his acting roles, but now he was trying to rationalize his place in capitalizing financially off of monetizing a possible worldwide conflict. Unfortunately for Howard, this situation didn't exactly get better, as Barb's escalating rank within Vault-Tec only meant that he began to associate more with its image and unclear motivations. Despite being a national icon and being financially stable, Howard still pined for a far simpler life and future, wanting to settle down in a quieter setting than the city life his family had etched out for themselves. Unfortunately, the compromises he had made to appease Barb, Vault-Tec, and the film studio he worked for all contributed towards a sense of unease that would be impossible for him to rectify. In the wake of shooting a high-profile commercial for Vault 4, Cooper reluctantly attends a wrap party for the advertisement organized by Barb. It was here that he would come into contact with numerous leaders for Vault-Tec, including a junior executive, Bud Askins, formerly of West-Tec, who was responsible for overseeing the T-45 power armor that Howard had seen many of his comrades perish in. The party itself was one he'd referred to as heading into enemy territory, to his dog Roosevelt, and seeking a quiet moment, would discover an actor friend by the name of Sebastian Leslie taking refuge outside the gathering. The two would discuss a growing level of radicalism sweeping their industry, which some had simplified as communist rhetoric, which had recently cost Cooper's friend Charles "Charlie" Whiteknife his standing as a consistent actor in his films. Communist sympathies in the pre-war United States were often used as a way to influence the general public by the government and megacorporations, and Whiteknife's potential as a dissenting opinion was confusing to Cooper, who had served with him in the Marines. Sebastian's claim that Charlie was now blacklisted because of it caused Howard to investigate further, given his own disillusion with his current associations. In reuniting with Charlie, Cooper learns that his sympathies do not necessarily fall under communism, but rather spreading awareness of the growing influence of megacorporations like Vault-Tec, and the idea that society is losing its power willingly, while Vault-Tec profits off of their willingness to trust them. Cooper and his wife Barb had been at odds for quite some time concerning her involvement with Vault-Tec, and their differing opinions over what a better future could truly be. Aside from the concept that Vault-Tec would not allow his pet Roosevelt to live in a vault, the Howard marriage was struggling over competing priorities should a nuclear war break out. The difficult reality led Cooper to seek answers, and reconnecting with Charlie Whiteknife sent a strained relationship into dramatically different territory, as Cooper was intrigued enough by these supposed radicals, enough to attend one of their meetings where he'd meet a research scientist by the name of Miss Williams. Initially, Williams compared the average American citizen to be more in line with that of a Chinese counterpart, an idea that Howard fervently was against and fought to defend his country from. In a short time, however, Williams was able to show Cooper just how big a divide there was between society's elite and that of the common person, explaining that Vault-Tec and corporations like them had suppressed technologies like cold fusion, a concept Williams helped create, only because of its hindrance towards their profitability. Cooper had already balanced a shaky relationship with his wife Barb, but Williams knew his wife's dealings firsthand, as the company she had once worked for was acquired by Vault-Tec, meaning that she knew more about Cooper's wife than he ever did. Armed with a listening device provided by Williams, Cooper was recommended by the R&D specialist to peek behind the curtain for himself and find out whether his suspicions were true about Vault-Tec, and the real answer would change Cooper's life forever. After experiencing immense levels of guilt, Cooper decided to tap Barb's Pip-Boy to fully understand the extent of Vault-Tec's future plans. After dropping Barb off at work and developing a ruse for staying at his wife's office, he learned the horrific truth of Vault-Tec's collaboration with some of the nation's largest firms, chief among them Robco, West-Tec, Repcon, and the Big MT. Barb would personally pitch the idea of utilizing the Project Safehouse network to test nefarious experiments on Vault dwellers, as well as potentially suggest that they could trigger a nuclear war themselves in order to initiate their world plans. Cooper, horrified by the conspiracy, would see no possible future between himself and Barb, leading to a divorce, and vacating his position as the poster boy for Vault-Tec's marketing. Disgraced by his former endorsements, he'd too be blacklisted and labeled a communist by the social elite and entertainment industry, leading to him working as an entertainer at children's parties while sharing custody of his daughter Janie. The reversal of fortune was so abrupt and personally destructive for Howard that he now refused to do the thumbs up that he had become so well known for doing. While Janie was more than happy to help her father with his job, she'd be with him the day of October 23, 2077, when missile strikes began hitting the city of Los Angeles, and the pair desperately tried to escape the bombs while on horseback. As of the events of Fallout's first season, we do not know exactly how Cooper Howard survived the bombs falling, nor do we know the status of Barb or his daughter Janie. What we do know is that he managed to outlast the devastation of the Great War itself, albeit becoming a ghoul in the process. Over time, the man who once served his country and believed in integrity slowly began to fade, as he'd adapt to the new world, but always be aware of trying to learn what became of his family. Cooper's belief was that someone at Vault-Tec likely held the key to determining exactly where they were, so at some point between the bombs falling and Fallout's first season, he was separated from Janie. For the next 2 centuries, Cooper earned a reputation as a successful bounty hunter, establishing himself amongst the communities of New California and drifting across the wastes, eventually ditching his pre-war name and becoming referred to only as the Ghoul. Post-war survival clearly changed his sense of moral code, as his ability to execute his goals comes with a level of ruthlessness only seen in his final acting roles. But his reputation would enter a mythical status after being captured by warlord Dom Pedro in 2266. He would end up being buried alive for almost 30 years, only to be exhumed once a year to be subjected to torture. A key to his longevity also appears to be a mysterious yellow vial, which keeps the full effects of becoming a feral ghoul from taking over his mind. Cooper Howard is a unique fixture of Fallout's live-action universe, a man who once held simplistic ideals about a quiet future for his family, who is instead now on a 200-plus years mission to find them once again. That mission, however, has had many pit stops across that time, as the former actor with strong principles is now a much more cynical individual who showcases an increasing level of bitterness in his pursuits, as evidenced while interacting with Lucy McLean of Vault 33. His ability as a tracker and a small guns expert are masterful at his age, which in 2296 makes him at least 260 years old. His abilities in combat are so lethal that he's seen taking out at least 10 foes 2 different times, with the second instance involving Brotherhood of Steel Knights and light infantry in a close-quarters firefight. Morally, however, the Ghoul is a far cry from the Cooper Howard of the pre-war era, as he will dispatch any potential risk in his way of completing an objective. Yet he still remains some sense of humanity, as evidenced by showing compassion to his fellow Ghoul friend Roger, even if that's moments before harvesting him to create, in his words, ass jerky. What remains to be seen is how much of the past can influence the Ghoul as he inches closer to answers about the fate of Barb and Janie. In one instance, we've already seen that his affinity for dogs seems rekindled by meeting CX-404, otherwise known as Dogmeat, and watching the complete transformation of Lucy McLean over Fallout's first season turns him from potentially malevolent agent to possible mentor and harbinger of justice. It'd be easy to call him an anti-hero and leave it at that. But the Ghoul is far more than this, as he represents an individual constantly changed and remade by the events before him. What seems to be clear so far is that Cooper Howard may be dead to the post-war world, but there's always a possibility that pieces of him may still be in the mind of the Ghoul, so long as he never runs out of the drugs that keep him that way. And with that, we thank you for joining us as we explored 9 facts about Cooper Howard, aka the Ghoul. Are there any facts about the actor turned bounty hunter that we missed? Let us know in the comments. And for more content just like this video, check out our full Fallout Stories playlist linked here, where you can find more weekly Fallout content. And until next time, pop culture nerds, keep on dissecting. This is Mark signing off.